Hi there, my name is Joe Wrights, and this is the very first episode of the MOPerator. Um, I'll be straight up with you. I don't know what this is going to be. I don't know where we're going with this. I don't know how many posts or what the end game is. What I do know is that our jobs are fundamentally changing. Whether you're in marketing ops, sales ops, revenue operations, whatever your company calls it, the Steve team. Whatever. Our jobs are rapidly shifting from we're not just system admins anymore. We don't just like own a Marketo instance or a Salesforce instance or whatever the tool is and configure things within those limits anymore. We've driven a lot of positive business impact in those roles for years. But where we are today is, and where the market, all markets are rapidly moving is, something that we're all intimately familiar with is that every piece of software has limitations. Not every use case is accounted for. And, when we have access to AI tools, what that means for us is we can build our own solutions that do a lot of the same stuff. And once you start breaking it down into bite-sized components, what you start to realize is like the whole internet is made of just like very repeatable bits and pieces. So what this site, blog, whatever you want to call it, aims to do is just make it easy for folks to onboard into this new era of AI app development. And the very first thing we're going to talk about is going to be super brief. It's going to be super high level, and I don't want to get anyone too buried or intimidated. But it's the basics of using a Git provider like GitHub and deploying all your code to a deployment platform like Vercel. Now you see me wearing a Next.js t-shirt. Vercel's on the sleeve. First thing I should say is I work at Vercel right now. I was a Vercel customer before I worked here. I think our products and our whole ethos of for the web and just everything that we're about is next level compared to anyone else in our space. But of course, I have to acknowledge that is a bias that I have. But for sake of, I think it's also super easy to show how to use Vercel. It's also, to be frank, what I'm the most familiar with at this point. I've used it more than things like Cloudflare or Netlify or anything else. So not going to be selling anything, pushing anything. This is not corporately sponsored, but this is just for us as operators, us as a community to ride the wave and pull each other along and share some resources. So the very first thing I want to show you is GitHub. So you may have heard of something called the CI/CD process, and if I just said that and your eyes glazed over, this channel is for you. So CI/CD simply means continuous integration, continuous deployment, and all that really refers to, because that made zero sense, is the process by which developers work on code, share it with each other for review and QA, and then deploy that to somewhere, whether their application, a website, whatever the thing is. So if you've been to GitHub before, which you probably have, you've probably seen like pages like this where it's just like a bunch of files. It's a bunch of folders in a file system somewhere. And I can navigate to some of these and look at what they are, like this local environment variable folder markdown file is just a very simple example of like, hey, you could fork this and add your own API key and to a not an example file, but just remove the .example from this, and then render this in your local environment and start seeing how the code actually works in this application. And the thing we're looking at right here is actually oops, not this. The repo that we're looking at, I should back up and say what a repo is. A repo or repository is just the term for all this code, where we're putting the application. So what we are essentially building here is this. This is just a generic marketing toolkit. This is on the site, so you could find this repo, you can fork it, you can customize it, use something like Cursor or any AI tool that you prefer to rebrand this, change how things work. But it's a very basic, it's got a lot of different tools in it. So like campaign naming conventions are always something that yours might be different. But it's here, and you can customize this to however you need for your business. But I'm not going to go too much into that demo. What I wanted to show you is that you put the code here, and then in Vercel, I've created a project for this same thing, and then in my settings menu, there is a Git section where you can see very simply, I've got it connected to this repo. So every time that I push new code into GitHub, what happens on the Vercel side is that if I go to deployments, you'll see what I basically did to make this toolkit is I took the marketing toolkit that we built for Vercelians to use on a day-to-day basis, which we do use daily, and I just debranded all of it. So that's why this is called de-Vercelification. That's what I called the PR, a PR, another jargony term. The main thing I think I want you to take away from this is that there's a lot of jargon and it's intimidating, but once you do it once or twice and see it, it's pretty straightforward. So a PR is a pull request. All that means is like if I'm editing code on my local machine, I post that up to GitHub. What best practice is to do is you do all your development on a branch. So you don't just ship to main like I just did. Never do that. What you do, that one was fine because it was the first code push. So there has to be something in the repo. But if I were to build onto this, I would deploy to a feature branch or like a general staging branch. And then what that enables you to do is preview how the app renders on that staging branch before you merge it to production. But that's essentially what you see here. Is if I had built a staging branch and created a PR, you would see a staging deployment here, and then after you do what's called merging a PR, you then see that same staging environment then deploy to main. So all of that, the main takeaway is it's an iterative process. You never ship straight to production. That's a fairly ubiquitous thing, I think, for most operators to understand. And that's just how you can set it up between Vercel and V0. Or Vercel and GitHub, sorry. I work here. But like the cool thing is, once you deploy to Vercel, you can set up a Vercel account for free, and you can do quite a bit on a hobby account. But there's going to be a domain for anything that you ship, and you can share this open on the internet. So the URL for this is oss-marketing-toolkit.vercel.app. You can go there. It takes you right here, and you can interact with any part of this app. The content analyzer won't work because I do not have an environmental variable on my with an OpenAI API key on this. I may add one just so folks can kind of play with this and test, but I also don't want to take that heat. So what you would probably the first thing you would do when you download this repo is load up Cursor, open this project on your local machine, and just ask and give it an API key and say, hey, put this into my local environment variables, and then ship this to Vercel. Done. Like I said, I don't want to overwhelm anybody with this first video. This is more of a why are we here? What are we doing kind of thing. But the post that goes along with this will enumerate a little bit more detail of like what some of the gotchas are, how to use GitHub, how to use Vercel a little bit, and we will continue to deep dive this content as we go and build more things together. But in the meantime, just know that there is a forkable repo for you to download and begin customizing. In our next video, that's what we're going to do together. Hope this was helpful. Cheers.